Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode, another live stream of LFC Transfer Room. Hope you're all having a great evening. Unusual to be on a Thursday, but yeah, changes here and there. But tonight I'm joined by Reese and Carter. We are due to have somebody else, of course, fashionably late for my streams. It's standard procedure. But first of all, Reese, how are you, my friend?
Not too bad. A bit tired from the week. I've been working and stuff, but yeah, I'm alright. Just a bit still frustrating with Liverpool with transfers and whatnot, but obviously I can't really do nothing about it. All I can do is vent on here. So yeah.
It's good to be a tool of I don't know what a bit of therapy, a therapeutic treatment, a bit of venting. Why not? I'll accept that. Carter, same for you. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Just trying to enjoy the week with very little news apart from sales. Been getting my Hughes out banner ready for the weekend. But no, I'm joking. But yeah, it's just slow week in the sort of transfer news. So just getting on with it really.
Yeah, it's certainly a frustrating and intriguing time to be a Liverpool fan. We're just looking around at all the other clubs just signing players. We're like that meme of Squidward sitting inside a house and everyone else is outside having fun. Yeah, it's just one of them. But plenty to cover tonight. We've got, I'm sure most people have clicked onto this to watch the FSG chat, of course. Of course, if you want to vent any sort of frustration, any questions, throw them into the comments. I'll get to them when I can. But we've got some transfer news, mainly outgoings, of course, as we've mentioned many a time. But we've also got the Valencia goalkeeper. Looks like that's going to get done. But we'll go on to the first one that's come on in the last half an hour. That Sepp van den Berg has been confirmed to Brentford. He has made his decision. Some sources say they didn't want to, Leverkusen didn't want to pay the fee in the end. But I think personally it's a better move for Van den Berg to test himself in the best league possible. Reese, are you quite surprised that we've let Van den Berg go? Or do you reckon, I know we all want replacements, of course, we'll get onto that in a bit. But do you think he would have been an ideal fifth choice?
Me personally, based on what I saw in pre-season, I would have kept him because he looks like he's kind of filled out. He looks like he's comfortable on the ball, understands the game. But I think from the get-go, he's like I said, he was never going to be the first choice, second, or even the third. And obviously, he wants first-team football. So in terms of the club, I'm not surprised because he was never going to be the first choice. But based on what I seen in pre-season, I would have kept him there if he was happy to be a squad player. And then if he was coming if someone's injured and he had a good run of games, I would have kept him in. Even if one of our senior players came back from injury, I wouldn't have just put them back in. But no, I'm not. I think the move personally to Brentford, like you said, will be better for him because it's in the Premier League. He'll get to test himself out. Even move would have been good, but I think that's a good move for him. Obviously, I wish him all the best, but yeah, he didn't want to be like a fourth or fifth choice option. I understand that. Obviously, being a footballer is a short career, so yeah.
Yeah, Bob on that. It is a short career. And Carter, I know you're a bit of a Thomas Frank fan yourself, so I think you were quite pleased that Van den Berg got his move to there. I'm sure he'll do well under him. What are your thoughts on the overall move for him?
I mean, I think it's a good move. I kind of hope they're on the TV apart from our game because I don't think he'll play that game. But I think he'll play probably a bit of right back. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. I think the thing that kind of annoys me is that he kind of fits that new modern, can play centre back, can play full back role. Like he played right wing back for Preston North End in the Championship. And I think that sort of skill set could be really useful. But as we were previously discussing, he might not be in the squad. Carnival's on the weekend. He's in West London. It's a good move. Like, I just think, and as well, it gives him a sort of like a springboard to move forwards because I think Brentford have shown that they can push sort of top 10, top 12. And if he has 2 or 3 good years, I could definitely see him getting a 30 to 45, 50 million pound move to another team. So I think for him, it's smart. As we kind of said, he wants to play at Leverkusen. It's no guarantee. I just think go here, smash 2 years out. And if you're good enough, you'll get your move. So I think makes a lot of sense for him. And 25 plus 5 for us, for a guy who's played, a cup game, is unbelievable business.
Yeah, exactly. Jay pointed out in the comments, it's cost Liverpool £1.3 million. I think it was the year we won the league he signed. Obviously didn't play, as you mentioned, but 25 million quid and a 17.5% sell-on clause. So if he does smash it at Brentford, we're going to get a nice chunk of change. Whether we get to spend that or not, it could be a different story. But that's by the by. It's a good deal regardless. Another piece of outgoing news is Bobby Clark's finally been confirmed to RB Salzburg. I think it's Salzburg, it's not Leipzig, is it? I think it's under Pep Linders. Another good deal, 10 million, 11 million with that sell-on clause again. I'm a bit more upset about this one because I think he played quite well, but I don't know about you, Reese. Even though he played quite a bit last season because of injuries, I don't think he's going to get the game time because of the midfield options we have available at the moment. They're all quite young. What are your thoughts about Bobby Clark moving on?
Similar to, a little disappointing because I think he's a talented player, especially based off when he got his opportunity to come in and play a few games last season. He did step up, but I do think, like I said, he's probably not going to play. And obviously, he probably maybe thinks as well, am I going to play? I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play. So, obviously they've got did you say a sell-on clause or something like that?
17.5 million sell-on clause. 17.5%, sorry, ignore me. 17.5%, yeah.
I would have rather them have maybe a buyback clause, but obviously I'm not Edwards or Hughes. Obviously, like I said, I think he's talented. I wish him all the best, and I hope it works out. I hope eventually maybe he gets to return to the Premier League because obviously that league he could do all right, but obviously it's not the same level as the Prem or maybe the Spanish or the German league.
Yeah, exactly. Carter, I don't know if you've seen the reports about Stefan Bajčetić potentially go out on loan. Celta Vigo recently been linked as a loan destination to his own country. I'm at mixed feelings about it personally. I don't know about yourself. You know, with the talk about a lack of a sixth signing or lack of all signings, but especially defensive midfielder, he's one of the 2 or 3 that we have. I'm quite upset to see. I know we need the game time, but I wanted him to stay just because the amount of games and the Champions League and the Cups we've got. What's your thoughts on him potentially going out on loan?
I get what you mean with the minutes available, but it kind of reminds me of, I think it might have been on the Arsenal documentary when they had it. And I think Nketiah was like, it's hard for me to be consistent and score goals when I'm playing 1 of every 7 games. And I still think with Bajčetić, I think he had moments in preseason where he looked great and he looked slick, but I think there was quite a few times where you go, oh, pass wasn't great, or it was looking a bit rusty. And I just think it would be so broken up his minutes. Like he wouldn't, barring a big injury crisis, he wouldn't get regular minutes. And I think that really would stall him. Like you look at someone like Adam Wharton and Kobe Mainoo, who I think easily within 6 months, he could be seen on the same level as those guys, or probably even better. Wharton was playing every game for Blackburn, came up to the Premier League, was used to it, came in, looked great. Kobe Mainoo, he's had some games where he hasn't been great, but he plays every week and he's got confidence and he's sort of building himself up. And I think Bajčetić needs to go and do that and to go to the team that he grew up in, the academy he was at. He's got loads of familiar surroundings, probably other young players who've come from the academy to the first team. It's going to be a really easy adjustment. I think him going there and getting like 2,000 plus minutes is only going to be a good thing. Like you look at Bradley, you look at Quansah, you look at Elliott, you look at all these guys who have kind of made a quicker jump into the first team compared to like Jones, who was kind of in and out for ages. I think a loan spell where you play regularly makes loads of sense.
Fair enough. It makes sense. It's just the only thing that I will always gripe at is the injury situation. I think we've had too many years where we've just been left short in certain positions, and with the 6 being an important, well, the vital position in the side. Listen, we have got players there. We've got Gravenberg. We've got Maka who can play there. We've got a lot of players who can play there, but I don't feel like we have someone who's going to be the mainstay. I think all the pressure's on Gravenberg at the moment, and is likely to pick up a knock. He can't play every game. Then you go down to Endo, who's publicly not been fancied by the manager. So that's why it would be me personally, be like, right, Bajčetić should be number 2. But I don't work with the players every day. It's not down to me. It's down to Slot. So if he's made that decision, then fair play to him. Stitches, fashionably late, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Apologies. Traffic is a nightmare coming back from Kent, but I made it. Yeah. How you guys doing? Everyone good?
Yeah, we're all good, mate. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
I'll get your thoughts quickly then. Bajčetić has been linked with a move to Celta Vigo on loan. What are your thoughts about it overall?
So first and foremost, I'm glad it's a loan and not a sale. As I think the kid is talented. I mean, he's shown us he can play in that midfield, which is brilliant. But we have to take into account that physically he's had an injury. That was quite a severe injury. He's got all the growing pain. He's redeveloped. He's gone from being a boy to a man. We have to treat that with care. And that's care in terms of not overplaying him as we did to break him in the first place, but also care in the regards that he needs matches. He needs to be playing at a competitive level, which may be the reason behind the loan. We see a future for him, but we might not be able to give him the minutes that we deem that he needs. Whereas, he can go home and be nurtured in an environment that, as Carter said, that he knows, and get games in what may be a less physical league, less intense, but still where he can develop his technical abilities at the same time. So I don't see it as a bad move. There's a wider question, though, around what's happening with our young players at the moment, and that's probably what makes this a little bit itchy in terms of a move. But as they say, the king is dead. Long live the king. So he's going to bring in his generals. He's going to bring in his own system. So we're going through that transition. It happens in the corporate world. You get a new executive come in. They bring in their team that they're comfortable with, people who they know that can deliver. They bring in the structures that have worked for them. This is life. And obviously for us fans, it's an emotional thing. But from the running of a club, it's a structural, operational thing in terms of, where Slot is trying to take the team or where they're trying to take the team. And this may be the biggest indicator that Slot and Klopp are two different people in terms of what we're seeing. But Bajčetić on a loan, to circle back to your question, is good if you can take the emotion out of it. In terms of what that means for our team, I would suspect that means that those minutes are going to be for Endo. And as much as we think the manager doesn't rate him, I think he's going to get more. He's going to get minutes in the game.
That's a fair assessment. I do agree in the whole Klopp and Slot are definitely two different types of people, but I think two different types of coaches. I've noticed that towards the end of Klopp's tenure that he was very not hands off, but he didn't get involved in the coaching sessions, and it become less of a man. He was more hands on in regards to transfers because obviously his best mate was involved in the transfers. I think he had a lot more say. Whereas Slot is very much, I want to be involved on the training pitch, and that's that. I'll leave everything else to the main guys. So it's definitely going to be a transition off the pitch as well as on the pitch. I just want the impact to be as minimal as possible on the pitch. And that's the main thing. I think that's what we all want. We want to stay at the top four, at the bare minimum. I know we should be aiming higher. We'll go into that in a minute. But I think like the overall concern is we need something to happen off the pitch for it to happen on the pitch at the same time because we want that best opportunity. But before we move on to the main part of the stream, a bit of positive news that I know we've talked about the Valencia goalie quite a few times the last few days. It's dragged on and dragged on. It looks like that is virtually done now. Multiple people in the media have said it's literally last bits and bobs and it's going to get done. Yes, okay, it's not somebody for now. It is somebody in for 2 years' time, and it is the Alisson replacement, which we don't want to talk about too much. But we've got to give credit where credit is due. Reece, I think this was the best case scenario in regards to a future Alisson replacement. I never thought Callagher was going to be the guy, as much as I do admire him. But we're on about moving forward, eventually we're going to have to replace Van Dijk. Eventually we're going to have to replace Salah. And then think replacing Alisson was going to be on the agenda, but an opportunity has rose up, and looks like we are going to take advantage of it. So what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a great bit of business by the club. I also think it's very proactive and not reactive. Usually they're more reactive and they kind of wait until it's too late. So obviously in terms of when Alisson leaves, that's a conversation for another day, and that's probably an uncomfortable conversation. I'm not really ready to have that conversation right now, but I do think it's good business. I think Kelleher is good enough to be the number one, but obviously the club probably don't see it as that. But yeah, I'm just happy as well at the same time that finally there is a signing. Obviously, it's not necessarily the one we were all looking for. We obviously wanted the 6 first, but yeah, I think it's a great bit of business. I've seen some clips of him and I watched him during the Euros. I think he's a good goalie. I think he's a really good goalie, and he's young as well. And I think him being loaned out, that will help him. So he's playing as well. He's not just sitting at our club and not playing. So yeah, I look forward to obviously him playing in the future. And yeah, that's about it, to be fair.
I'm not going to lie, I butcher his name every time, so I'm just going to refer him as the Georgian. If someone wants to correct me going forward, that's absolutely fine. I think it's like Marmajashvili or something like that. I can't say his name. Carter, he's rated as the highest. I don't know what the actual. You'll know. You're better with the stats than I am. But he's basically the highest rated under 25 goalkeeper in the world as it stands, in terms of value and in terms of his like stat index and whatnot. What are your thoughts on him? Have you? I don't know if you watched him other than the Euros. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's positive. It is a real positive from the club, because losing someone in the future, as I don't like to think about it too much, but when Alisson does decide to move on, to replace the best goalie in the world is not exactly an easy task. So doing this now and have it all sewn up is definitely a positive in my eyes.
Oh no, definitely. I've seen mainly like you will probably the Euros, but I think statistically he's always stood out. And I think a big thing that's always stood out is how big he is. And I think when you look at him and Kelleher, I think a big thing is like the cross sort of catching and dealing with that sort of thing. Because I still think when I watch Kelleher, and I think on the ball he's good enough, but I sometimes think, not like pity, but sometimes you let those in and I go, oh, it's Kelleher, I can't be too harsh on him, he's not Alisson. Whereas this guy is like the most expected goals prevented in La Liga, like 10. And I think the ball playing is a bit overblown. I think from things I've seen in Twitter in his previous clubs, where they were a lot more ball dominant, he was a lot better on the ball, he could sort of showcase it more. And I think the big thing is with Alisson, and people don't want to admit it, but he's getting sort of the 2 injuries that you don't want a goalkeeper to get, which is kind of like hip and hamstring. And if you're launching the ball, it's going to happen. And it feels like if you were going to do a bingo card for Liverpool this season, you'd say Alisson missing at least 7 games is something you'd think is likely. And let's just say this season he missed. I'm just theorizing. Let's say it got worse this season and it was 14 games. And next season it's 18, 19, 20 games. We have to make a decision. Although he could still be very good till he's 37, if his availability is going to continually decrease, we need to make a decision where is it better to have this guy for 38 games or Alisson for 27? So I think it makes perfect sense. And I think Kelleher as well, he's not going to sit on the bench for 2 more years. Whereas I think Masvidali is, or however you say it, is going to be happy going on loan for 2 years.
That's fair enough. I can't remember how tall he is. I think he's like similar to Courtois.
6'7", I think, or just under 6'7".
Yeah, I always like having a massive goalkeeper, especially when you compare it to Pickford. Anyway, mind you, that everybody's massive compared to Pickford in goal. But anyway, yeah, it's in regards to Kelleher, Stitches. I don't know your opinion on Quivy Kelleher. I'm in agreement with Carter. He's very good with his feet, and I think until he has a run of games, he doesn't look unconvincing. I think that's a bit harsh, but I watched him live a few times. He looked completely different to what he was the season before that, when he was playing quite a few games. And then obviously when he did get the run of games, he turned into a very good footballer, well, a goalkeeper. But my main thing is, if this was 2 years down the line when the new lad is supposed to sign properly and play for us, if this was 2 years down the line and Alisson was leaving now, would you reckon he would be the number one? Or is it a case of the club don't think he's good enough and we still would have this Georgian lad?
Okay, so first of all, we still a line from Game of Thrones. We know nothing.
No.
Right? We know nothing. However, from a personal perspective, my opinion is I love Kelleher, no homo. Brilliant player for us, great goalkeeper. But I feel he lacks presence. And I don't know if anyone else gets that same vibe. I feel like he'll do you a job. Like, I'm almost surprised when he makes amazing saves sometimes because I forget he's there because he's so, like, he seems silent to me. He seems like the command that you get when Becker's in goal, in between the post. He prowls that penalty area. He's a big, dominant man. Like, do you know what I mean? He towers above the other players at set pieces. He's a dominant presence. I don't get that from Kelleher. That doesn't mean he can't be a good goalkeeper. Doesn't mean he can't be a fantastic goalkeeper. But I don't know. Growing up, I always felt goalkeepers were a few screws loose. They were mavericks. I grew up with crazy keepers, so you need to feel the presence of your goalkeeper there, especially commanding a back line that's got the man mountain that is Van Dijk. And, he's going to have Konate in there as well, who are two big dominant guys. So that little triumph of them three, they need to be dominant. So for me, I love Kelleher, but I can kind of understand why they may be willing to let him go because they have this guy in the wings. The other reason I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, why have they acted so swiftly in this regard, but not necessarily in other things? And there's 1,000,001 reasons why that could be. It could be just the opportunity was there at this moment in time. And I think we're a club where, if you listen to Dr. Graham's interview with The Athletic, where it gives a little bit of insight into how Liverpool do things, I think us as fans think that there's this amazingly large pool of players for us to pick from. But I got the impression from him that that's not the case. There's a model that they use, which is then overlapped by qualitative or qualitative information from people who have experience. So that shrinks the pool down to quite a few people. So when the opportunity comes to sign someone that fits into our model, then I think we act. And we've seen that, where we've been triggered to in other cases where the opportunity has arisen. So I think that's what's happened here. As a kind of left field thing as well, is this signs that Alisson's looking to go back home or go somewhere else? Because, he's been at Liverpool a fair amount of time now. Is he starting to think, I want to try something else. I want to go home. I know he lost his dad during lockdown, and that's a big thing. His family need him. I know he's very Christian in the same way that Firmino is, likes to play his guitar. He might be starting to think, this isn't everything I want. And he may have made the club know that. Maybe that's why they're making that move now, So, I'm completely speculating here. I'll go back to the point. Nothing, Steve. Stitches. So it's kind of that kind of thing. But to go back to, I'm going to call him Eminem because I can't pronounce his name. Right? To go back to him, I think he's the right type of keeper for us to be going for. And the fact that others sensed an opportunity and wanted to sniff around, mainly Man United, to try and pip that signing at the end, says a lot. And goalkeepers are not easy to find of a certain caliber. So, when the opportunity arises, then we need to do it. I know a lot of our fan base would wish we were doing the same with the 6, but I actually think 6 is the new 10. When Klopp came in, everyone and Coutinho went, everyone was like, we need a 10. We need a 10. We need a 10. We never actually replaced, Coutinho in that way. We did something different, and maybe the case, and as we're seeing, it may be the case that we're doing the same here now as well. And we're never going to win the transfer market. I know some of our fan base want us to. They want us to go out there and decimate and just buy up everyone. But again, I go back to the point. if you listen to the noises coming out from people around the club who may not even work for the club anymore, it says that we do things in a certain way, and that's not going to be compromised. You know, and the pool, whereas we're playing Championship Manager here, pulling out names from left and right, those names may be nowhere near the pool of players that actually been looked at. You know, so, and you know, I know people are upset about. I've gone way off piste here, but Zubi not being signed as an example, and they're like, "Where's the plan B?" And I sat back and I'm thinking, if everyone thinks we've gone for Zubi and he's plan A, anyone we make a move for now is going to be like, right, what? So I'm second best. So we're going to be in the same Lavia situation that we were in when we were flirting with Lavia and then went for Caicedo was really our main guy. And then in the end, we ended up losing on Lavia. So I don't think they're going to be public about who the plan B is. I don't think they're going to be public about who's in this short pool of players that they're picking from. I think I know there's a lot of speculation that's been going on and names being thrown out, but my theory has always been, if there's a lot of media speculation on a player, 99% chance we're not signing. You know, so
yeah, that's fair. That's
it's
fair.
a long
Fair
way
point.
Yeah,
more than fair points. That's fine. Just in regards to what you were saying about Alisson, I've got a feeling it is a mental thing. The fact that he's probably been through the most out of anybody at the club. You know, he went through, like I say, he lost his dad during COVID. He couldn't go to the funeral. Things like he's been in the club since 2018. And when you see like Edison wanted to go Saudi, I know it's for the money, of course it is. I won't rule out Alisson probably wants to do the same, set his family up for life. If anyone deserves it, he's probably one of the ones that do. But if that is the case and he does want to move on and the club have heard noises, either way, we're trying to be proactive about it and we have to give some sort of credit to them. So, yeah. Yeah, well, you got all the transfer stuff in regard to Zubimendi, the frustration out there straight away. Cheers for that. We'll go into that in a second. Just to touch a point up back onto the academy, I know people in the chat are talking about, you know, the results. I think it was, I don't remember if it was last night or the night before. There was the PSV one. We lost 4-0, the under-21s. You know, about getting rid of all the academy lads. This is affecting the academy as well of us. So I think as Liverpool fans, I think we all underestimated what needed to be done behind the scenes in terms of a bit of a reset. I think you got all these players, Klopp's kids, basically coming through. They've had a taste of first-team football, and I don't think we've sat there and gone, well, they'll want more of that. We're either going to have to keep them and not sign anybody. I know people going to turn around, well, we're getting rid of them and not signing anybody. I know that. That's by the by. But I don't think we realise all these lads are going to have game time, whether it's on loan or whether it's to be sold. And that's all going to have to take time. And also, we've had all new coaches. We've had all new sporting directors, sporting structure. And this has all happened in the last 6 months. And it takes so much time. I'm not sticking up. I'm not making excuses for lack of transfers. I'm frustrated. I'm peed off about it all, like we all are. But Reece, I don't know about your overall feelings in regards to it. It is confusing. As Stitches has mentioned, we don't know much. We don't know anything. We are going off what we've noticed, little bits and bobs from journalists. So take away, just for now, for this moment, take away the transfer frustration. When Klopp announces he's leaving, the owners are suddenly right. Got to get a manager. We're going to have to get a new entire structure in. We've done that. We've got Rich Hughes' opinion aside on him at the moment. Edwards has come back. We brought in Julian Ward again, and Pedro Marquez is going to try and work on the multi-club project. That's the word. Going forward, they've got to assess everything as well as the new manager. All of this has had to happen in one time. When you hear this, does it make you start thinking this is why it's taking so long to sort things out? Or does it make you just think, well, it's not good enough regardless, it shouldn't matter, it is wrong in what we're doing?
I can understand it in a way because obviously a new manager, new structure. and they have said Slot has said that he wants to assess the team. Obviously, the worst mistake he could do is come and start changing things straight away. A bad example of that would be Villas-Boas when he came to Chelsea, and he tried to change things, and they still had a lot of senior players like a Drogba, Lampard, and Terry, and that's how he ended up kind of getting the sack. He tried to change things too quickly. Obviously, how Liverpool had quite a what's the word? Strategic.
Strategic.
That's it, strategic. So, what's it called? They don't like to just buy for the sake of buying like a Chelsea. They don't like to make moves where it's going to cost, FSG or the penny fish. So they don't want to lose money. So, from the other side, we are Liverpool and we're a big club, and we do. Klopp's left us in a good place. It's not like when he first came in. So we do have a good squad. We've got a good academy as well. So, and we're not too far off. Obviously, I expect us to be around third again. If we were to get, it's frustrating because it's not like we need loads. You only need one or two kind of top players. So I can kind of see it from both ways. But obviously, from a fan perspective, when you're seeing every other team signing players and then we're just kind of standing around, and then now we're selling players, but not the same amount is coming in, it's very frustrating. But I can see it from like both sides of the coin.
Yeah, that's fair, mate. So before I move on, I want you, just all three of you, I want a thumbs up if you're happy. When I say happy, are you satisfied with the current ownership? And I want a thumbs down if you are dead against, you want them out. So can you do that for me right now? Thumbs up. What about you, Reece? Are you thumbs up or thumbs down? Yeah, no, I thought you were going to go in the middle then. I was going to say, don't do that to me. Right, that's fair. That's fair. Just wanted to see what your opinions were before we got into it.
Yeah, I'm not like North Pole to thumbs up, but I am.
No. I don't think anyone's going to be like, full on, they're the best ever. I'm not expecting that. But if you had to choose, are you supporting them or are you dead against? It's one or the other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Reece, tell me why are your, other than transfers, because I know that's what you're going to say straight away, is there any other reason that you're dead against?
No, mainly just the transfers, because obviously when they first came in, obviously they said they're sell to buy. But obviously when we were put in a position where we could challenge and stuff, and we build the club back up, and obviously winning trophies and finishing in certain positions, you'll earn more money. You'll start to spend, but they've never really fulfilled that obligation. Every summer they come out with the same PR saying, this summer we're going to spend this, we're going to have Klopp's going to have this, or now it's going to be Slot's going to have this amount of key, 200 million, 250. So it's just more lies, and obviously they've done a lot of shady stuff when they tried to raise the ticket prices, when they tried to do the Super League thing as well, and then also, what's the last one that can't come to my name? Yeah, I'm sure when we did the stadium expansion, even though it's gone up to 60, I'm sure it's meant to be expanding again, but they've put that on hold. So even though, don't get me wrong, as they're very good businessmen, how they run the club, they run it quite well, but it's not just business, it's football. I still don't feel, even though they've been here so long, I don't really think they know that much about football, and I don't really think they're passionate about Liverpool. How many times do you see them come to games? They're hardly there. Whereas if you look when Abramovich, he was always at games. You look at the Man City owners, even though, yes, they're shady in their own way, they always put their money in their pocket for City. They're always at most of their games. So it's just quite frustrating, to be fair.
Yeah, I understand. I'm neither like dead against or super like happy. I share the same frustrations. The club can spend more, of course it can. But when you mentioned about them owners, Abramovich has been done for war crimes, basically. City's owners are potentially, by rights, they should be potentially Conference League for 115 charges. I think the core fan base, whether the comments agree with me or not, I feel like the core fan base wouldn't stand for state ownership, and rightfully so, especially when it's Saudi or Qatar, because of the whole human rights. I fully agree on that. So this is the problem. If you did move them on, who do you get in? If you're not having someone like that, you're going to have a similar type of thing. You can't just have someone come in and spend loads of money and then we're going to be in trouble, basically, because we can't follow it up with PSR coming in now. Even Newcastle are restricted and they've got all the money in the bloody world. I'm not trying to justify penny pinching. The money is there. And I think we have got the money to spend, but because it's restricted, we can't go and spend it on the second choice, a third choice. I think that was been specified in the past. Carter, I think you've pointed out in the past, was it Edwards or no, it was Klopp, I think, who actually came out and said, we can't just spend money when we want because we have to sign it on the right player. It's a proven formula for us because let's take City out of the equation, you know, the cheating charged machine at the moment that's been run by technically the best manager in the world on record. Take them away for a second. We would have had 3 Premier Leagues and 2 and potentially another Champions League without that Real defeat. People will be thinking of it completely different. And we've gone with the rules, the way we've been spending. Can you see what I'm trying to say? It's such a fine line between the two. Yes, I understand the frustration, but it's clearly we've won everything in football before City even did as well. What are your overall thoughts on the ownership?
I think, and people might give me hate for this, I actually, as long as it wasn't closed shop, I was for the Super League. I think UEFA are terrible. I think they're so horrendous. I think how they deal with sort of racism and all those types of things, I think they're so corrupt. I think they're a horrible organization. And I think, for me personally, I'd rather Liverpool and all those clubs make an extra 500 million and the players get an extra 200 million rather than that bold guy, what is it, Infantino or whoever runs it, not against bold people. But then I think the ticket stuff wasn't great. But I think, and people might say I'm not a fan, like my dad's from Liverpool, I've watched all the games since I was really young, like I try to watch every single game. You're supposed to be entertained, and it's the game is the entertainment, but part of the way football culture has evolved is sometimes you want to see players play for your team, you want to see different players play for your team, and I think having a bit more spending would make me, I would still love the club as much as I do, it wouldn't affect it, but I think it would make it more entertaining. And I just think sometimes it has limited us. And as bad as this sounds, in 60 years, people aren't going to remember Roman Abramovich. Like what was happening, it's going to be Chelsea won these titles, City won these titles. No one's going to remember that Liverpool lost. If 5 results change, Liverpool have won 3 Champions Leagues, 3 league titles under Klopp, and he's the greatest manager of all time. So I think it's really difficult. And I think the big issue for me is I think the human element has stopped FSG's way working as well. And I think COVID was the biggest disaster for Liverpool, because I think without COVID, we sell Sadio Mane for 160 million pounds the year we win the league. And I think that goes on 3 players. And I think we're set up so much better to go forward. But I think COVID absolutely killed us being able to sell players. And I think that really stopped us turning the team over, because if you offered Klopp and said we can sell Mane and sign 2 80 million pound players, I think he'd understand. Whereas if we were going to sell Mane off winning the league for 65 million pounds, he'd go, why am I going to do that? We're going to sign someone way worse, and we're only going to sign 1 player. So I think those are I think there's a lot of interesting things around FSG objectively, like as you kind of said, the other ownership groups. But I think from an entertainment point of view, unhappy. For a purely like fan enjoying like the team, the culture of the team, I think I'm happy.
That's fair. I think some people could look back from when they first took over into where they are now. Stark differences, but then some people, we always want more as fans. I think that's natural. Stitches.
Yeah. I feel like I'm about to be the defense for FSG. I've been sitting here taking notes on some of the things that were said. And look, the bottom line is, so first of all, let me put this out there. The FSG debate is no longer one based on rationality. Let's just say that, right? societally and as a fan base, we've become polarized, right? It's a bit like Brexit, right? People don't care about the facts anymore. They just, I'm FSG out and that's where I'm staying. I'm FSG in and that's where I'm staying. There's no longer space for nuance. There's no longer space for a debate where we can bring facts to the table. Now, alternate facts are what it is, right? So with that being said, I know that I'm going to get lambasted for what comes next. But as owners go, they're not the worst, right? They've done well by my club. So I'm old enough to remember the glory days, right? I'm 5 years off 50. I'll just put that out there.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I look very good for my age, right? So I remember the glory years and I remember the pain, right? And I see where we are now. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? It's not bad. My club is now in a structurally, operationally far better place than where it was. I believe actions speak louder than words, right? Both positively and negatively. Positively, they've done everything they said they were going to do. Facts, you can go and check. From the first interview to now, they've done everything they've said they were going to do. Do we like how they've gone about it? Probably not. Everybody does. I can accept that, right? But ultimately, they've delivered, right? Are they delivering? The thing is, we're revisionist in terms of what we look at. We never look at the context of where we've come from to where we are now. We're tending to look at where we are now and we want more. And that's understandable. That's what fan bases should do. We demand excellence. We're a great team. We're a historically fantastic team in this country. We're immense. So we should be wanting more. And I wouldn't want that to change. But there's context to everything. And we need to try and remember that. I'm so glad that Carter brought up the Super League thing. I felt like I was going crazy because I was the only person saying, I don't mind. Like, what's the difference between UEFA and someone else running the league? The only thing is, the Super League came out and told you in facts what's going to happen. Certain teams are going to be in the league every single year, and they're going to be there, right? And the reality is, if you look at the Champions League, it's the same teams every year, bar one or two. Like, how many outliers have actually won the Champions League? They sold you the dream that Rochdale could get up through the leagues, get into the Champions League and win it. In reality, that's never going to happen. Never going to happen, right? So it's the pipe dream versus the reality. And I'm tired of the media mafia of Sky, you know, UEFA, everyone controlling football. Look how Gary Neville was very quick to jump up and defend the structure that's benefiting his team. And people don't see this, right? They spent like a half hour, 45 minutes lambasting it, killing it, before we actually got to hear what the offer was. Did they market it incorrectly? 100%. Did they get off on the wrong foot? 100%. But let's explore it. Don't just kill it off the back. Do you know what I mean? And I completely agree. Where's all the money going? Why is it when it's like Champions League finals and whatnot, 60% of the tickets are going to people that have got nothing to do with the clubs that are in the final? The allocation is ridiculous, right? So there's a lot not right with it, but it's almost like, yeah, it's crap, but it's our crap. So we're going to defend it and we're not going to let anything else come in the way. So that's on the Champions League. We talk about like, the grass is greener. We're going to get other owners. The reality is the only other type of owner that's going to come in, and some people will be happy, are people with bottomless pits of money. So our oil country, basically. But then you've got all the other questions that you raised. Are we going to be happy with that? We spent the last 10 years complaining about City and Chelsea and everyone else. Does that not make us hypocrites if we're in that same position? I'm kind of proud that we're doing things differently. I'm proud that we're doing it in a more organic way. It means more. This means more. It really does. When Trent came out and said, our title means more than what City does, I knew what he meant. I felt that, right? So I believe in all of that. So the other thing as well, I think what I'll end on, because I could go on, right, is two things. One, the we don't spend money thing is a myth, right? Because we are one of the biggest salary paying teams out there. Our salary bill is bigger than most. And the reality is, when you look at success in the league, salary is a greater indicator to success than transfers is, right? So somewhere along the line, we made a change and said we want to keep our best players instead of having them just picked off. We want to keep our best. So therefore, we pay the salaries, right? And it's linked to success. And relatively speaking, we've had a lot of success recently. That's why players are getting paid a lot more, right? And then the final thing is, if you are FSG out, I'm not trying to convince you not to be, but one thing you can't deny is that if you think they're just here for the money, they're just treating LFC as a cash cow, they haven't actually taken money out other than money that they put into the club in terms of loans. They haven't taken anything out. However, they've increased the value of the club. In order for the value of the club to increase, there has to be success. And they're astute enough to know that. So whether you like them or not, in order for LFC to get, we both want the same thing is basically what I'm saying. We want to win, so do they. And they're trying to do it in a way that, because if the club wins, the value increases, more sponsorship, more commercial deals, which we're seeing, the increase in value of the club. So when they do leave, they're going to make a packet of money from the club. But they're going to only, the way they're going to do it is if the club is successful. They're not going to do it if the club isn't. So in a roundabout way, we are both heading in the same way. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a FSG and FSG out question. It can be a debate about, are we happy about how they're doing things? Because the reality is, what other owners are we going to get? Right? And are we going to be happy with that? I guarantee if we had oil barons, there'd be some other complaint. There'd be some other reason why people aren't happy. So I don't know, like, yeah, if there can be a even debate about this and we could talk facts and not emotions, then I think, you know, you could still be FSG out at the end of it, but it'll be a more nuanced and balanced debate than just the emotional stuff that we see all the time. Sorry, rant done.
No, fair. I want people to, you know, explain their opinions and why they feel the way they do. So that's absolutely fine, mate. Don't worry about it. I've been monitoring the chat while you've been going through it all, and I want people to tell me what, other than people saying to me, I want more money on transfers. I get it. We're fans. We want the team to be the best it can be. Explain to me why you're dead against them. Why don't you want them? I see people saying that, oh, we're selling players, the squad's worse. The squad's no worse off than it was. The only player you could argue was Bobby Clark because he made a few appearances. Cavalier was out on loan, and we've got our money back. None of the managers wanted him. Slot didn't want him. Klopp didn't want him in the end. Sepp Vandenberg, he played one game.
Yeah.
And we've sold him for £25 million profit, £26 million profit. You know, and we've got a sell-on clause. So I don't want to hear the squad's weaker. It's not weaker. It's just no stronger than it was. That's the only thing we're frustrated about.
Only Matip I would throw in just to.
Yeah, he's the only one you could argue.
I would say we didn't have Quansah. So it kind of balances in a way.
Yeah.
You know, although Matip, I would say, is way ahead, much better player. But, you know, it really isn't that bad as people think it is. I just think, you know, we've played one match and we did quite well. And you've got a midfield that was new last season and is going to gel a little bit more. Yes, we got a new manager that's coming, so that means we need a little bit more time. And I hear it sounds like I drank the Kool-Aid, but I genuinely, that's how I feel. I don't feel negative towards watching my team. I'm actually quite excited about the journey we're going to go through this season. And I like the fact that we're taking our time. I mean, if we think back to just the beginning of FSG or pre-FSG, we were very knee-jerk. We're spending 55 million on Carroll. We were getting people like Benteke because we missed out on somebody else, and we were rushing into the transfer market like crazy. It's almost like we were getting robbed. Teams saw us coming. They were like, oh, there's Liverpool again. They're desperate. Let's whack up the price, right? And I feel like that's changed now, right? I don't know if that's by design or just by accident, but is it really that bad? Really?
Well, that's the argument, isn't it? Jono, in the chat, you said about the data nerds getting the credit over Klopp. Klopp's always got credit, but just to let you know, Klopp was the one who wanted Núñez and Diaz as the signings, not the data nerds. So I'll let you leave your own conclusion for that one. Any other thing you want to shout out? Jay, I noticed using PR on your supporters. I think it's more journalists say they want information. The club have given bits of information, and it's up to them how they want to use it. So if they turn around and say money is there to spend, there is money there to spend. It depends on how the sporting director wants to use it. And if the journalist wants to turn around and say, yeah, there's loads of money spent, but that's down to them, it's clearly wrong. We've got money, just not as much as we probably want to have as a supporters. FSG are wonderful businessmen. They aren't football men. That's why we have a sporting director doing all the stats, doing all that, working with the manager. That's clear. What they've done off the pitch is remarkable in the time they've been there. The ground is state-of-the-art now, the way it's been expanded. The training ground is world-class. The old one, as much as it was, a piece of art, it was a relic, it was getting on, it was old. Look at Man United, Carrington's falling apart, but they're spending money on players, but the infrastructure's falling apart. Yes, they've got new guys in charge that will probably rebuild it in about 5 to 10 years because they will spend the money on the players, but the bloody Old Trafford's literally leaking. This is the thing. FSG don't put their own money into the club, which is frustrating, yes. But FSG aren't multi-billionaires like the oil merchants. That's just simple as that. They generate the money through the businesses to then spend. We don't know the ins and outs in terms of finances, but the club's not in dire debt. It's got a great stadium, great training ground. We've won every trophy in football, and we would have won a lot more if it wasn't for a cheating oil baron machine. So I just want, like I say in the comments, throw it at me. I'll answer it at the end of the stream. Reese, when I point these little bits out, like I say, I understand the transfers. This summer especially, we all share your frustration. We really do. But what other alternative would it be? Who would you have as your owner if you could think of one? What is the alternative?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one. Like I said, how they run the club, I don't have no problem with how they run the club. Obviously, we got a new training ground. During COVID, when everyone was taking out loans, we didn't take out loans. And then you've seen a lot of clubs now getting bans for FFP because of this and that. We don't have none of that. I appreciate all that. I just would like them to spend a little bit more money. I don't mean they have to spend 200 or 300 or 400 million every season, but whoever we need to go and get, just go and get it. Just stop haggling, messing about, trying to be like, oh, we're gonna pay this. Like, just pay the money. Obviously, I get you don't want to be ripped off. You don't want to pay for a player who's maybe overpriced, but the market's kind of changed now. Players who are like 20 million, around 40 million, players who are 40 or 60, 80, right, and so on. So like, just that's what I'm asking for, and we're not that far away. That's why it's more frustrating. It's not like we need a whole new squad. If we needed a whole new squad, then I understand that takes time, but we actually have a squad and we've got good young players. You just need 2 or 3 marquee signings, and it's just frustrating because, like I said, if they had given a little bit more money, I think Klopp would have had maybe we would have even got to enjoy a league title to maybe another Champions League. That's my only grievance, really.
That's fair, mate. And like I said, that is the one thing that will always gripe me going forward. You look back, if we just spent a bit more on this player, and that is always going to be the question. We don't know exactly where the money has been put, how much is coming into the club, where it's been spent. We just know nothing's taken out. That's the main thing. But yeah, it's frustrating. But Carter, as I mentioned before, that line is so thin. If we sign 1 or 2 players in the next 8 days, the mood is completely different. We don't talk about it. We forget about FSG's even a problem, if they are a problem, if you see it that way. And if we don't sign anybody, it's the end of the world. It's like I say, it's so finite, the difference between the two. Do you see that as just being a result of the years of false promises? Or do you just see that as, oh, we're seeing what other people are doing and we just want to do what they're doing?
I think, and I might sound like a really old man here, and I don't know how old all of us are, right? But I remember I went to a friendly at Anfield, Liverpool versus Valencia. I think it's 2-1. I remember watching. I was quite young, like I can't remember how old I was, around 10. I remember going, oh, this Juan Mata guy had the thing, whatever the program. I was like, oh, this Juan Mata guy is really good. So I go home, go on holiday, come back from holiday, wake up, look on, my dad's got the newspaper on the table. Juan Mata signed for Chelsea. I hadn't heard anything. I hadn't heard a rumor. I hadn't seen anything. I never watched him on YouTube. I never watched him on Twitter. I think the access to viewing everyone, viewing every story, seeing how much every player is going for, seeing that there's been a bid put in, I think really doesn't help. Like, imagine if this was in the early 90s, we wouldn't have known that we were in for Tchouaméni. Probably Bellingham, maybe there would have been rumours. But all these guys, it's kind of, oh, yes, no. We wouldn't really know. But because everything's so reported now, the Caicedo stuff, it might have been, oh, Liverpool didn't really bid for him. But there's no hiding from it now. And I just think the more the issue for me is how the money's been spent. Like, and we kind of was speaking in the chat before this. I still am very adamant. I would have preferred to sign Yuri Tielemans and maybe put some of the McAllister or Gravenberch money towards a proper 6. I think there's ways to be smarter. And I think, and I'm going to sound really harsh on him, Gakpo, I just can't understand it. It's still to this, like, I've given him a chance. I just don't like it. And I just think if we'd have been smarter and had more analytical guys, we'd be fine. And we're kind of struggling. And Klopp probably got more out of less. But I think if we'd have had our approach the whole way through and we're a bit more brutal with some of the players, I think we'd have had a larger sustained period of like almost success. I think we would have been consistently 80, 85 point plus. But I think sort of holding on to Henderson too long, I think sort of signing players that either aren't ready to hit the ground running or don't suit a position in the side, I think that's really held us back. Like, I think the sort of build up of the midfield, we've got loads of players, but they all want to do the same thing. And I think that's the big issue. And people don't realize now we got Costas, who I don't think is good enough, but we have to sell one of him or Robertson. So I think we just kind of got ourselves in a jumbled position. But I really honestly think the access to watching anyone on YouTube, like I think I saw Fabrizio Romano posted Brentford signed some maybe called Nunes. I can watch this guy who's played for Gremio. There's 5 minutes of highlights. Back in the day, I would have never had the opportunity to. So I could now sit here and say, we need a right winger. Why didn't we sign this guy? And I can all of a sudden be unhappy because there was a very attainable player to play that role. So I just think it's been more difficult for FSG to look good as time's gone on.
Yeah, that's fair. It's definitely shifted some sort of, perception over the years. I'd say the lack of access from back in the day of, well, you can't watch 5-minute highlights in the 2000s, early 2000s and whatnot, unless you had dial-up internet, things like that. I've had a few things in the comment thrown at me. What's changed is we're selling our youth talents. It symbolises the future from hell here. We're selling them talents because, one, they're not viewed as being good enough to play enough in the team. And we have, believing our academy's that good, we've got some more coming through ready to step up and have opportunities like they did. This is the thing we have to look at. That's number one. Simple question to panel was, have FSG, this is from Andrew, have FSG ever bought players unless they've sold players first? Yes. Their first transfer window, they spent money on 2 strikers, one of them being world class, one being absolutely shite. And that's Andy Carroll and Suarez. Then we proceeded to sell after. You can argue either way which was first. But then the summer, we wasted £80 million under Kenny Dalglish when we brought in Stuart Downing, Charlie Adam. I can't even remember Jose Enrique, multiple signings. We've wasted money in the past. We wasted money a couple of summers ago. Like I say, you can argue with yourself whether you like it or not. Nunes and Diaz wasted money there because some people want them out. Last summer was the first summer that I feel like we didn't waste money because they're all vital parts of the team now. I think all of this together, Stitches, I'll get your comments on this. A lot of these off-the-field problems have been through... We've had 3 different sporting directors in 2 years. I think all that thrown in is just completely throwing it all apart. We've got no new contracts because we've had a change. We lost Ward quite quickly. Then we had a temporary sporting director. Now we've got another one who's trying to sort all this mess out. He's just happened to be thrown into a transfer window with a new manager as well. It's at the end of the day, the money is there. We've tried to sign somebody. He said no. The criticism is there's no plan B, but we don't know that. As we said, we don't know anything. So surely we just got to wait for this another week before we make any sort of judgments going forward.
Yeah, I would completely agree. it's just a case of, I think we're internally not stable since the brain trust exited left under Klopp. And I think Klopp, obviously, look, I'm a Kloppalite. I absolutely love Klopp, right? So this is not criticism in regards that I'm not a Klopp fan. I am a Klopp fan, but he's human, so therefore he's fallible, right? And I feel like part of what we love about Klopp in terms of his nurturing character, his ability to want to work with someone and get arm round and be that fatherly figure, sometimes to the detriment, because I feel like we held on to Henderson for far longer than we should have done, right? And the same for Milner. And then him making judgments on people like Nunes, going away from the model, right? And the model isn't everything. Let me just say that, right? But it was working. It was working. That combination of Klopp and the brain trust was working. Them coming with the data and what fits the model, and Klopp and his team coming with the qualitative information about how that person who's going to gel into the team and the type of character that they are. All of that matters, right? I think we've gone from the era of just, oh, we need to sign and let's go sign someone. It doesn't always work. Yeah, I mean, Benteke was a good goal scorer, just didn't work for us. Stuart Downing could play a certain way somewhere else, didn't work for us. He's the guy we got from Burnley. I keep forgetting his name, and he just completely injured every time he was with a striker.
Danny Ings.
Danny Ings.
Oh.
Everybody was excited about Danny Ings. It just didn't work for us. So there has to be a strategic approach to signing players, right? And what that does is it eliminates people from that bucket, right? And then when you layer on top that we have a certain environment around the club, a certain type of player and player that fits in a certain style of play, that bucket narrows down even more. I am not saying I don't want any signings, but I'm done with the days of the wrong signings where we've wasted money. We can't afford to waste money in this transfer. I'm not trying to be an accountant. I'm just trying to be the voice of reason here, right? And I'm not saying there's no players out there that they could go and sign, but I would rather they were diligent and there's an approach to it where they can say, all right, if it goes wrong, they're like, right, this is why it goes wrong. We're going to fix it next time. And we make sure we sign the right players. I just think as much as signing one or two players can push us towards winning the title, signing one or two wrong players can completely take us in the other direction as well. So sometimes we've got to be careful what we wish for. And as you said, Dean, transfer window's not closed yet. We could get 2 signings in the next week where everyone sort of sits back and says, okay, so that was the plan. I mean, if you remember when there was memes of Edwards and Klopp with the power glove, like they'd gone and collected all the gems, right? We didn't know that was happening. We knew nothing about it. But then all of a sudden it happened and we were just like, wow, these guys are killing it out there. But we didn't know it was coming. Right, we were having these same discussions, these same complaints about other positions, other signings, and all of a sudden the club delivered. Right, so I'm just like, rather than us preemptively abusing and feeling negative about things, how about we feel negative once it's happened? Do you know what I mean? Look, by all means, if at the end of this we end up in 5th, 6th, I'm not going to be here telling people be positive. I'm not going to be here saying it's not that bad. I'm not going to be here saying all of that, but I'm just kind of like, we had this negativity before the first ball was kicked for the season. And I was just kind of like, we waving the white flag already. We finished 3rd last season and we had a ton of injuries, right? That's why we played the kids. Like, I don't think we're going to have the same amount of injuries we had. Like, that was an anomaly in terms of injuries. Right. So if that doesn't happen, we've got a team that can compete. We didn't lose a game until we were ripped off by the referees at Tottenham, where, it was just completely weird. And that kind of derailed us a little bit. We had players sent off that shouldn't be sent off. Then we got ridiculous injuries. We were doing well. We still finished 3rd. So I'm kind of like, look, the squad wasn't that bad to start with. I'd rather we get the right players in. FSG, are they the best owners? that we could wish for if you could create your own owner. No, they're not, by far, they're not the worst. And as you asked Reese, who's this miracle owner? Like, if someone could throw a name in the chat of an owner that they're like, right, that's the owner I want. They got enough money, they just give it to the club, they just pump the, well, they can't anyway, because the rules don't allow you to. The rules don't allow you to. So you've got organic, it's, I don't get 68% of our income or turnover goes on wages. Like, it's one of the highest out there. So what do you want? I don't like.
This is the thing.
It just doesn't make sense.
This is the thing. We will always compare ourselves to other teams because that's what you'll naturally do. We will look at Man United spending money this summer, but none of them players get into our team. Simple as that. Yes, they are getting stronger, but if their owners aren't perfect by any stretch, it's falling down there even now, even under these new guys. Like I say, I've seen someone point out in the chat about if it all starts going wrong, do we start blaming Slot? No, because believe it or not, in 2 months, he's given me that much hope. I was worried when we first announced it. I was thinking this is going to go sideways. He's given me that much hope in 2 months. He deserves a season easily to try to do what he wants to do. Even in that first game, halftime makes a massive decision like that, and it pays off. We end up winning the game comfortably. Things like that, it doesn't come down to just how we spend the money. It comes down to the manager as well. So people have been mentioning the contracts. Of course, the contracts are a main thing. I'll just quickly brush over this because we are running out of time. Contracts are important, but they can be sorted at any point. Hopefully September, as soon as the window's done and forgotten about, that's what we'll focus on because that is what's important. Keep our best players, especially Trent. If I had to pick one out of the three, just for the fact he's the future captain, he's the scouser in the team. Yeah, that will be the main focus going forward. And before we finish up, Reese, I want your prediction for Sunday. Just give me a score prediction.
I'm going for 2-0 or 3-0.
Sound.
I would go, and I think Salah, Jota will score again. Maybe either one of them 2 and 1 goal. Maybe Nunes or Gakpo comes off the bench and scores. Maybe, but yeah, 2 or 3-0 for me.
Yeah, Carty, what's yours for Brentford?
I'm gonna say 4-1. I'm gonna say Szoboszlai, Salah, Jota, and I think Diaz. I'm going to say Kevin Schroeder for Brentford. And I reckon we signed 0 players.
Cheers, Matt Carter. Thanks for that at the end. Stitches, what's your prediction for Sunday, mate?
I see a 2-0. I think Salah gets on the score sheet. I'm going to go left field here and say McAllister gets on the score sheet. Yeah, I just think we're ramping up. I think you're going to see a better performance for longer, not just a half. In the game, we've got a good week to prepare for the game, so I expect to see a better performance.
Yeah, ears open. Yeah. Just quickly, Jay, 120 quid for New Jersey. Believe it or not, it's Nike who charged that, not the club. But anyway, whatever your feelings on the ownership, whatever you're feeling about the current transfer predicament, I'm sure we're all in the same boat on that. Get behind the Reds on Sunday. Get behind Arne Slot. Up the Reds. Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one.
See you later.